From LALATE News Headquarters in Santa Monica, this is Mornings LALATE.
It's a big morning of Mornings LA with incredible great news about your fourth stimulus check update of 2021. In this recording, we go over that recon and where the negotiations are right now. A deal will be happening, but Joe Manchin addressed a economic council in D.C. minutes ago. His comments I have breaking on this morning's broadcast. I'll go over what he said and the latest details of why a New Jersey and a Virginia governor's race impacts your recon. I'll explain to you why. Then, the price is right, 1.7 to 2 trillion, or is it becoming 1.5 again? I have the latest breaking details. Programs in, programs out. New programs, and the big question is whether the number one program for the progressives is in jeopardy and the whole recon is in jeopardy. Then student loan debt, more debt could be forgiven. I have the latest details on that. And then your COLA raises are going up. But guess what? You're going to get another lift after that. That is fifth stimulus. And as this channel turned a year and a half years old this weekend, now I'm adding in the end of this recording my perspective to the negotiations and what the Democrats need to get done to get this recon done. It's a big morning because the toast is toasted. The butter is butter and the coffee is brewing. I'm here, you're here, I'm excited for you. And guess what? I have nearly 80 pages of notes on set about breaking news just in the last few hours and some in the last few minutes. It's a big morning's broadcast because here we go. Recon number 1, 2, 3. No, this is number 4. Mornings LA starts right now. Hey, good morning, everybody. I hope the weather is good where you are. It is warmed up finally here in Southern California. The sun is coming out. The sky is clear. It is spectacular right today. Recon will be happening, but when? I have the latest details and why Democrats, both progressives and moderates, agree they got to write it up. New poll, but the new poll signals is Virginia and now New Jersey part of the equation to getting your recon done, and a governor's race. What's going on here? 1.5, is that the new price of the recon or is it not? The latest comments from Joe Manchin minutes ago. Programs in, programs out. Which programs need to be solved? If you don't solve those programs, you don't get the recon done by the weekend. Then, COLA raise, get ready for COLA raises. They're coming. I hit the wrong button again. COLA raise, it's coming in, and but guess what? Because your fifth stimulus is right behind that. And then student loan debt forgiveness could be happening right behind that with an additional $10,000 across the board being offered from the president. We have a big morning's broadcast. I'm really excited for you to join me because guess what? There's a lot of breaking news minutes ago as Joe Manchin addressed the American people. I have all those comments that are happening. I have the comments from Chuck Schumer, Bernie Sanders, Jalopal. It's all breaking this morning, and it starts right now. So subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record at 140 million views in a year and a half. For a reason. You're not going to see the breadth of this coverage anywhere in America, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and this video will exemplify that. Like this video, 2,000-3,000 likes, and consider becoming a member to get that newsletter Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. to get the big money under first, second, and third stimulus. The link to become a member is under the video. Let's go right to this recon. 3 weeks ago, a House subcommittee approved a $3.5 trillion recon. It will no longer be $3.5 trillion, but that recon still will pay you a lot of money. The average view of this channel will be paid upwards of about $15,000 when this recon becomes law. That is money for single individuals, people who are married, people who are not married, people who have children, people who don't have children. This incredible sums of money is a lot. It covers people in red states, blue states, single, married, children, not children, disabled, not disabled. $15,000 for this recon will be for you across several clusters of checks. We're going to go over each of them. The first, the second, and third, and then we'll go over the 3 add-ons. And the latest update starts right now. In the first cluster, hazard pay and $4,000 of elder care. We have no update yet about the hazard pay. This is the broadening the eligibility of earned income tax credit and increasing the amount of money for those essential workers. We have no update about the $4,000 of elder care or the $4,000 for young children's care. The free money to repair your home if you're in a low-income community, we believe that's surviving because the provisions for the home care are surviving. And the Pell's grant made totally tax-free, and the college grant to the university and to the student surviving. We do have an update about that. There you go. The CTC we also have an update about that as well. The CTC will be shortened. 1 year, $3,600 for $3,000 per child if you make $60,000 or less. Then we have no update about the bikes, cars, and trucks, but we believe they're still in there. This is $7,500 for the purchase price of a new electric vehicle, personal use, 15% for the purchase of a new electric bike, all U.S. auto manufactured, a little bit more if it's for business use. That's the first cluster checks and the update about them today on Mornings LA. Now let's go to the first add-on. That first add-on is from Maxine Waters, $25,000 for the purchase price of your first home. Surviving? I don't think it's surviving at $25,000 anytime soon. But the provisions for the home are surviving, which is potentially that. The money we just went over just a second ago, the home repairs, low-income home, coming up in a second, the weatherizing your home, the mortgage assistance, rent assistance, utility assistance, it's surviving. Price tag about $175 billion. It's great. It was out on Thursday. They pushed to get it back in there. They got it back in there and still growing. So good news with that. Let's go to the second cluster of checks. Which ones are in there? Which ones are out? Let's go over the details and what's going on with them. Paid family leave and medical leave, battleground. It still remains a battleground. And in the second half of this video, I'll be going over how much it is. It's staying in there, but not as much as originally envisioned, and the eligibility has been shrunk. Household tax credits, child care tax credits believed to be in there. Pre-kindergarten believed to still be surviving. Tuition-free community college, either in there or 2 years, nothing more, not lifetime like they initially thought. And money to weatherize your home, believed to be surviving. The weatherizing your home is for all homes across the board. It's believed to be surviving, part of that add-on from the house repairs or house or rental money from Maxine Waters, $175 billion. That's why it's a big price tag. It is believed to be surviving in there. Let's go to the second add-on. Great news. This is the home health care. The president ran on this as a platform for the presidency. He put this in the recon. He wanted $500 billion. Bob Casey wanted $250 billion. It was removed late last week. It got back in there. And this is great. So it's surviving? Yes. Is it less? It is less. In the second half of this video, I'll be going over the price tag of it, but it's surviving. It is free home health care. If you're a senior and cannot afford home health care, and if you're disabled, cannot afford it. Great news also for your children. They will not have to stay home from work to take care of you. Now the state will provide you that licensed professional totally free. Let's go to the third cluster check and see what the update is on those today. Well, free school meals for all. No update about, we believe it's still in there. Cheaper prescription medication. Surviving. Totally different. I'll explain how different it is later in this video. Then we have money for farmers. No update about that. Free internet. No update about that. Clean energy. Out. Update about that. And you know that for about the last 2 weeks. Money for workers like independent contractors. No update about that. Medicare expansion, which is a lot of different things. Expanding Medicare, still in there. Dental, vision, and hearing, battleground. Expanding the Medicare is a battleground because the language is an issue. You can see that later in this video. I have a lot to talk about that. And the dropping the eligibility age, a battleground. It's currently 65. They're looking at it 60. Bob Casey wants it 60. Bernie wants it at 55. Battleground. That provision, that section, just Medicare, real big battleground. Very complex. I have it later in this video. I'll be going over all the provisions because Joe Manchin spoke about them minutes ago. Now, let's go to that third add-on. Now, that third add-on is the MSC. If there's anything you're getting a flavor already from this video, is that everything is a battleground practically. Everything is a battleground. Out, in, reduced. So advocacy is very, very important. It's important to understand that the situation changes by the hour, so you cannot rely upon something that happened a month ago or 2 months ago. So if you advocated in the month of July, you need to call. Have you called? Have you called those senators this week? Let's go over the situation at hand. We don't have a recon bill yet. We're still working on the proposals of the recon. Eventually, we will have a recon bill. It's fine if the MSC IRS stimulus check is not in there because they can add it during House amendment before they call the vote on the House side. That's what Omar's office, Jalapal's office, and AOC and Pelosi have all said, that they would call for a vote. And let's hope they keep that promise to us to do that on the House side. Now, let's say the House members don't do it. Then we have the 2-day event at the very end, the Votorama. That Votorama is where the senators get whatever the House passed. Now, if you've been with this channel over the last year, you know how important the Votorama is because the House members do their own thing. And sometimes the senators have a whole different mindset. Yesterday, Ron Wyden introduced provisions that he would be doing by Votorama for taxes. That's how senators are. They walk to the beat of their own drum. And we had Liz Warren and Chuck Schumer in spring of this year, got the House bill for third stimulus, looked at it and said, you know what, we're going to be having the president forgive some student loan debt. We cannot have it taxable because currently on the tax code, student loan debt, $40,000 forgiven, for example, you'd pay $20,000 of taxes out of your own pocket, and you don't have $20,000 to spend. So Liz Warren and Chuck Schumer added a provision during the Votorama for third stimulus that made the forgiveness of student loan debt tax-free. That's how senators are just brilliant. They add things on their own accord. So that's why the advocacy is important. Have you called those senators' offices this week? Schumer, Casey, Coons, Sanders, Warren, Wyden need to. And that is what the number one senator of the equation said, that it's important to advocate until we're over the finish line. That advocacy is critical. They now have in total between congressional senatorial offices received more advocacy from the LA Purple Power than the number of signatures in the American petition. Everyone's amazed by the touching stories from the LA viewers. Now they have a better understanding of how Americans are trying to make it through the pandemic. They have heartbreaking stories from the LA viewers. And now they have the voice of the people across the nation in ULA. As ULA have become too loud to be ignored. Very, very kind. Let's lead the last sentence on air together. The last sentence on air says, please continue your encouragement for the continued advocacy. As the professional voice of the people, you have become LALATE, and push until this becomes law. Very, very kind and very, very important. You're going to see later in this video that very big provisions that the progressives ran on, dental, vision, hearing, that they said were non-starters unless they're in there, are battlegrounds for themselves today. Do you think they're folding up like lawn chairs? They're not. Do you think we're folding up like lawn chairs for MSC? We're not either. Need to advocate. Everyone is battling for provision. And things out, going back in. Home health care out Friday, back in today. The money for home items like rent, mortgage, and home repairs out, back in there. And paid leave out, back in there as well. So everyone's battling for everything. You need to push as well. In the second half of this video, I have a lot of breaking news. Trust me, folks. The Economic Council of D.C., a sort of Lions Club, Rotary type club, they invited Joe Manchin for breakfast this morning, and Joe Manchin spoke. What did he speak about? He spoke about the negotiations that went on between him and the president this weekend. New insight. You never heard this before. I never heard it before. It's brand new. He not only goes over what was discussed, but what was not discussed. And he also talks about the price tag of the recon. Then for the first time in this video, in this channel, you're going to hear about why 2 governor's races in happening next week are important or not important for your recon. What? Yeah, I have the latest details. Programs in, programs out. And for the first time, you're going to hear that why the writing is very important and why you actually have to see the words. Because Joe Manchin found a fault in some of the writing, and the president said, Joe Manchin's right. You have to actually see the writing of the words. Even though the recon's been written, some of the provisions, like dental, is being modified, so you need to see those words. Student loan debt forgiveness, more debt could be forgiven this week. It's great news across the board. The COLA, your benefits are going to go up and get ready for fifth stimulus. Fifth stimulus is right behind with 3 more lifts up. And now as a new add-on to this channel, at the very last 3 minutes of this video, I'll give you my insight as to what they need to do. And in this video, I'll explain where they need to focus on for this recon negotiations today. Because if they don't get this provision agreed upon, then they're not making progress from yesterday to tomorrow. It's all happening. It's a big morning's broadcast. We're just getting started. Stay with me as we go into the second half of this video coming up in 60 seconds. But first, here is a little bit about the community page. If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join LALATE Daily for the excitement of the new LALATE live daily. The excitement starts on Mornings LALATE at 9 a.m. Home LALATE returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons LALATE at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on LALATE. It's a big morning's broadcast, and we're just getting started. The second half of this video, breaking news as Joe Manchin appears before the Economic Council of D.C. I have his comments minutes ago. It just happened. A deal's happening, says Joe Manchin, but when? I have the latest breaking details. What is the price tag? Joe Manchin mentioned a new price today. What's going on? I have what's the details happening. Programs in, programs out. I'll explain to you the big program that's a big problem, and one program the president found, his staff didn't write it the correct way. What's going on? It's breaking on mornings. Student loan debt, more debt could be forgiven, and then the COLA raise is coming up right behind that. Those details and more as we go into the second half of this video. Trust me, it is a jam-packed breaking news video, and it starts right now. So subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record. I want you part of this incredible family. Join me next on Mornings Crypto at 10 a.m. live on air right after this video. And then we go into noontime at 11 a.m. We got shows at 1 o'clock, then the 3 o'clock evening afternoon show. Big show. Do not miss that 3 o'clock afternoon show. And then the evening's LA show will show the result of the negotiations today. This is going to be a big show tonight, so don't miss those last two shows. And then we got shows at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11:30, all about forced stimulus. And with that, subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record. I want you part of this family. Hit that like button and consider becoming a member. Let's go over the breaking news starting right now with insight as to what happened during those negotiations with the president on Sunday. You heard it first on this channel. Yesterday, Monday morning, broadcast channel, the #1 broadcast channel in America, went on air and sent out the feed to all their local affiliates that the president had a meeting with Joe Manchin at the president's home in Delaware, and that a deal was reached with the recon at $1.7 trillion. I immediately said, what? I didn't see that. Not only was it untrue, but now we learned from Joe Manchin really what happened during those negotiations. Nothing. Joe Manchin reveals this morning during the Economic Council for Washington, D.C., that the president, Joe Manchin, really didn't reach any agreement on anything that they had not already reached an agreement already before on. So while the president wanted to try to show that the meeting was helpful, it wasn't. The only thing that was beneficial about it was Joe Manchin told us what he doesn't like. And so far, that's not really the problem. The problem, rather, is Kristen Sinema. So Joe Manchin, to the Economic Council of D.C. minutes ago, said, I had a nice visit with the president on Sunday. I really did. It was a nice visit. I basically said to the president, Mr. President, my philosophy of politics is different than yours. My philosophy is government should be my partner, not my provider. Yeah, you heard that right. Should I read the quote again? Joe Manchin said the government should be my partner, not my provider. I mean that literally and figuratively, but it was a positive meeting. That's about it. Joe Manchin said that the president originally told Joe Manchin about a week ago the following quote. Joe Manchin said to the Economic Council, the president said a couple of weeks ago, what do you think about Joe Manchin and Bernie Sanders getting in the same room? I think it would be homicide, the president said to Joe Manchin. Well, Sunday I said to Mr. President, I took your advice. Bernie and I have met over the last few days, a couple hours every single day, and I respect him and he respects me, and we just agreed upon the approach. Good. So they are talking. Here comes the comment about Joe Manchin and Jalopal. Now, I don't know if Jalopal has heard this quote. I would like to see her reaction when she sees the quote. Remember all this week I showed you Jalopal said she met with Joe Manchin last week for the first time ever. She thought it was very positive. She liked him a lot. They got along really well. Remember that quote? And remember, Jalopal is the person who wants to pay you big sums of money. She's the person who wrote the IRS monthly stimulus check provision. She's the person who wants to give Americans a lot of money. So what did Joe Manchin say to the Economic Council of D.C. about Jalopal? He says, I never knew Jalopal, and she didn't know me. I explained, Pramila, you represent Silicon Valley. I represent the energy state where people struggle and have always struggled. So we have two different points of view. A little shady there? I think it is. I would like to see Jalopal's reaction to that quote. He's basically saying she represents billionaires and he represents hardworking Americans. Ironic, because she's the one who wants to give you more money, not him. So, but then listen to this last quote from him. He says, so we have to make sure that we do take care of everybody. Wait a second, Joe Manchin just said that? And the quote before that, he says, I'm not big on the government being my provider. And then here in the same breakfast, maybe after the second cup of coffee, he says, we have to make sure we do take care of everybody. A little contradictory. Yeah, I guess when that second cup of coffee kicked in, everything became a little bit clearer. This is where it gets fascinating. The president and Joe Manchin, when they met at the president's home in Delaware, also had White House staffers on during the meetings. And during the meetings, the president and Joe Manchin talked about the corporate tax rate and the wealth tax, which is $400,000 or more per year, to pay for the recon. That's how you pay for the recon. Joe Manchin has already approved this. He's already said, yes, this is a no-brainer. So the president's not achieving anything by saying Joe Manchin agreed to it. Joe Manchin's always agreed to it. Joe Manchin's on board for this. It's where the president turned the discussion to say, but I have Kristen Sinema at issue because Kristen Sinema does not agree to it. So I propose to do this sort of enforcement provision for IRS to pay for the recon. Guess what happened to that during the breakfast in Delaware about that? Joe Manchin says that I said to Mr. President, do you understand how messed up it is to think that Uncle Sam's going to be watching and you're putting this provision in there like this? I told him, this cannot happen. This is screwed up, Mr. President. Then, apparently, the president then turned to the staffers in Delaware during the breakfast and said, who the hell put this in here? That's the president's word, according to Joe Manchin. And then the president said to the staffers, I think Joe is right. You can't put this type of language in a recon bill. So Joe Manchin says, I think it needs to be gone. Why is this very important for us? It's very important because Joe Manchin is on board with the progressives saying we need to see language of stuff. These staffers of the D.C. office of the president put stuff in there for this Kristen Sinema backup. It was never going to fly. And Joe Manchin caught it and said, Mr. President, this is junk. This language doesn't work. It will never work. And the president said, you're right. Who put this stuff in here? Thank you for Joe Manchin for catching it. Schumer spoke minutes ago. He says, I remain confident that a final deal is within reach. Notice how the adjective is changing. It was by the end of this week. Now it's within reach. Depends on how long your arm is. I mean, I have longer arms than Chuck Schumer, so I can reach a little farther than Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer has very short arms compared to mine, so I don't know if Chuck Schumer can reach it as fast as I can reach that recon. We are confident we're going to get this deal done. Here come the reaction, and here are some really, really shocking quotes. These are brand new. This is this morning. First, Jalopal said that the vast majority of our priorities are in the recon, but there are a couple areas where it's still not the case. Warning signal. If the big provisions the progressives want in the recon are not in there, how do the progressives agree upon the recon? She said, we'll continue to push as hard as we can, but we just got to recognize the 50 senators and we have no margin in the Senate. Nobody should take the progressives' votes for granted. The last sentence is very fascinating. What does she mean by that? I don't know. Does that mean that we're progressives and unless you give us what we want, we're going to block stuff? I think that's what it means. I should hope that's what it means. Let's go to the next quote. Steny Hoyer. It says, if we don't act like we're winning, then America won't believe it either. And then Bob Casey, who's a great guy. He's the guy who wants to give you a monthly stimulus check. He told Lorica that he's the guy who's giving you the home health care. And he's the guy reducing the Medicare eligibility age down to 60 from 65. He says really frustrating. It's as simple as that. Where we'll land is still a very robust investment in people that are often left out. But do the progressives on the House side agree upon that? Remember that quote from Jalapal several weeks ago, where she said, people always ask me, is a little bit better than nothing? And she said, no, people have existed their entire life on little bit. We're not doing a little bit anymore. So we don't know if progressives would agree upon that sort of language of Bob Casey. Then Veronica Escobar, Democrat from Texas, she's the one that had that Sinema quote the last 2 days. She said we're heading towards a win. Will everything be in there? No, it won't be all in there. But we have a lot of cooks in the kitchen. Here comes a fascinating quote, and the price is right. What is the price? Well, here's what's very peculiar this morning. The president, what is his price? Still $2 trillion. Good thing about Joe Biden, he doesn't move. His price point is $2 trillion. It has been $2 trillion for now about a week and a half. The progressives said they'll go to 1.9. Joe Manchin said 1.7. What did Joe Manchin say to the Economic Council of D.C. when asked, what's your price tag this morning? He says, I'm still at 1.5. Excuse me? Wait a second. 1.5. This is big because remember, when you're talking about programs, they're looking all of these programs at about 100 billion to 200 billion approximately. Going from 2 trillion to 1.7 is about removing 2 trillion, is about removing two programs. You go from 2 trillion to 1.5, you're potentially removing 3 programs, maybe 4. So 1.5, Senator Mazie Hirono, Democrat from Hawaii, who's wonderful. She said it would be a major disappointment and she would be not happy if it goes to 1.5. I'm open-minded about my ultimate bill. But you draw a line and then you get stuck and, I'm not interested in getting stuck. Considering that we need all 50 votes to get anything done, we're in a situation where one person can do that. Who's she referring to? You know who she is. Then Representative Peter Welch, Democrat from Vermont, says, it depends on your point of view. You're starting for 3.5 trillion. You're going down. But extending, here's a fascinating quote from Welch. He says, the core components, climate change, helping families, extending access to healthcare, are all still in there, so it's a huge success. They're not all really still in there. They're not really still in there. He's not part of the negotiations. This is what I always tell you. There's 4 people in negotiations, Joe, and Chuck and Nancy. This guy, Peter Welch, is not part of the negotiations. He's a House member. He's not part of the negotiations. So unless he's watching this video or watching that one or reading that one print and media outlet, he doesn't know what's not in there and out there. He's just a huge success. Certain provisions are not really in there. One of the fascinating parts of this article was Bernie was cited for a quote today. He would not give a quote. Wow, that is fascinating. Now, here is what's getting very peculiar, is that a governor's race in New Jersey and Virginia, what the world does that have to do with your recon? A little bit and more. A new poll says Americans don't know what the recon even is. 90% of Americans polled by CBS don't know a recon exists. Okay. 10% of the remaining 10% can't tell you what's in the recon. Okay. So now, a new series of Democrats say that they want to get the recon done because they think not getting it done will hurt the Virginia and New Jersey governor's race next week. Crazy? I think it is crazy. If people don't know the recon exists, how is it going to hurt the governor's race? Doesn't make sense. I love the quote from Jim McGovern minutes ago. He's a Democrat from Massachusetts who says, you have to do both bills. We're not doing one bill. He says, I'll support the roads and bridges if we agree upon the recon, and we will. Liz Warren, she has a fascinating quote minutes ago, and which brings us to what's in the recon and what's out. Remember, Liz Warren, very important senator. Part of the negotiations? No. Does she know what's going on? She says, I just want to see a good deal. Notice the verb tense. I want to see, meaning she hasn't been shown it yet. She hasn't been part of the negotiations. She just wants to see it. But she's optimistic. I'm optimistic we're going to have enough good stuff in there to make this package, and we're going to get widespread support among the Democrats. Guess what print media is running as quotes today? They're running quotes that we're looking at where the progressives are going in the negotiations in the next few hours. What is that going to come up? Where's that going to come up? In the final minutes of this video, where I give you my insight, because this is what I'm focused on as well. All right, let's go over the provisions that are in there and the provisions are out. This is the latest update right now. It's a very confusing, fluid situation. What you need to know is that the negotiations among 4 people, this sourcing is from insiders to the negotiations. It's not because of press briefings. Joe Manchin gave us a little bit of insight, but other than that, we don't have a lot of press briefing on the specifics. Let me go over where the provisions are and what's going on right now. Here we go. Programs in, programs out. Childcare in 1 year, $3,600 or $3,000. If you make $60,000 or less, that's it per child. Not going to be 5 years, not going to be broader across the board, only 1 year. Then they got in there, community college, is it going to survive? Very unclear. It's either going to be out or it's going to be 2 years or less. Then the Pell Grant, definitely staying in there. Tax-free, the Pell Grant and the college grants surviving. Medicare, oh boy, and am I really going to go over this? Medicare is now 1, 2, 3 different issues. The first issue is how to pay for the Medicare. The second issue is the Medicare eligibility age, dropping it from 65. It's being proposed as 55 for Bernie, 60 for Bob Casey. The third issue is the dental. I'm going to go over all of this in just a second. I have more about this in a second. Next, paid leave, surviving, but totally different. It's currently looking at 4 weeks, low-income employees only per year. What is it not? It's not going to be 12 years. It's not going to be self-employed or gig workers like Uber and Lyft, and it's not going to be for all income levels. Then, prescription medication survive. Great news on this one. A person sent me a message about this on Instagram, and also insurance premiums. And this one's surviving. So what are they doing? It's going to be totally different. They're going to do cheaper prescription medication for those prescriptions approved by Medicare Part B. That's currently where they're looking at. Childcare surviving, but less number of a shorter duration. Clean energy out. Health insurance. That very nice viewer who sent me a beautiful message on Instagram said, cannot afford insurance. Please tell Americans to get the insurance into this recon. It will be in the recon, so it's surviving. Shorter duration, not as big. Housing, which you saw earlier in this video, great win. This is the Maxine Waters battle. It's not just mortgage and rent. It is also potentially the home repairs and the weatherizing your home. It's surviving. It was out. It was out. It was originally $300 billion. It was out last week. It's surviving about 175 right now. And in-home health care for my disabled people, my seniors, surviving. It was out. It was originally at $500 billion, then 400, then 250 with Bob Casey. It's coming at 100 to 250 billion. Nancy Pelosi gives us some insight about the dental problem. Let me give you her quote and then explain to you what's going on with this vision dental hearing and the Medicaid issue. Let me first go over what is going on. Medicare expansion. So Medicare expansion, they want to expand Medicare. Joe Manchin agrees. Everyone's on board for it. That's not the problem. The problem is Joe Manchin sees a language of issue on how to write the bill. And he wants to see it. And no one's written this part up because no one's addressed it until he raised it. And boy, I think it's a big issue. I think it's a great issue he's raising. What's the issue? He wants it. Democrats want it. But it would be rolled out in all 50 states. And the Republican-led states would not have to pay for it and vow not to pay for it, which means that Democrat states would have to pay for Republican states to offer to their citizens across the board. And Joe Manchin's not excited about his West Virginian citizens paying for a Republican-led state for their Medicare assistance. So he wants to figure out a language workup on this. This is where that part of the recon hasn't been written. And that is why you have to look at the language. And Joe Manchin says, I need to look at the language. So too says the progressives. Next, the dental vision and hearing. Pelosi addresses the confusion about dental. And I don't know when they saw this problem. I just started reporting this problem in the last 3 days. Nancy we're saying now that she's been told that it takes 5 to 6 years to implement the dental after it becomes law. So let's say they got the dental in there. Within 5 to 6 years, it's not rolled out yet because it takes a while to roll it out. So what's the solution? They've offered to do vouchers of dental, $800 a year until it rolls out. I don't like $800 a year. $800 a year doesn't even cover for one procedure. So what the world is $800? Here is where the reaction is. Bernie Sanders and Omar, who are progressives, say exactly what you're saying, what you would think they're saying. Not coming out. The expansion of Medicare to cover dental, vision, and hearing is one of the most important provisions of the entire bill. It's what the American people want. I'll have more about that in my commentary at the end. Then, what else is surviving? Well, the SALT is coming out. The SALT is a provision that a lot of people thought was at jeopardy. What is it? The push to lift the cap on state and local tax deduction, that is out. The Obama subsidies, that is surviving. Meantime, they have not still figured out the pay-fors on the revenue side, the backside of the recon, which is Joe Manchin on board, progressives on board, president on board, Kristen Sinema not on board, and no guidance as to whether the president's trying to get Sinema on board for that. So the revenue backside of the situation is very unclear at the moment. How much of the recon is done? How much of it is not done? The recon, as we go over programs, the front end, I would say about 98% is done. 98, maybe a little bit more, done, agreed upon. The writing, I would say about 80% is done. Why? Because they're now seeing certain issues like Medicare where they have to reword some of the language. And the back end, the revenue part side, they have to reword some of the language. So the position of the moderates and the progressives, for the first time, aligned. We can't agree upon something unless I see the language. Joe Manchin says, I want to do the program. I want to do it, but I have a problem with how you do the program, and everyone agrees it's a problem. Someone needs to write this up and show it to me. And after you've seen it from early in this video, where Joe Manchin's at the breakfast table in Delaware, the president say, "Who wrote this thing?" And the president said, "Who wrote this thing? This thing doesn't work. Joe Manchin's right. You people are not writing stuff right in the White House's staffers." So that is a very big issue. Now, I'm going to have a commentary about this coming up in the second half of this later in this video, but let's turn to student loan debt and COLA quickly. Student loan debt, the president's offered an additional $10,000 to be forgiven. Democrats should take it, not close it out just $10,000, just take that for now. It is $10,000 across the board. The president forgave three rounds of student loan debt in recent days. If you missed it, here they are. The president forgave student loan debt for individuals who became disabled after graduation. Then, the president forgave student loan debts for individuals who went to work in the nonprofit sector after graduation for 10 years. And finally, the big one, the president forgave individuals who went to work for the public sector 10 years after graduation. That's city, county, state, or federal government. Public school teacher, sanitation driver. You don't make enough money to get that student loan debt written off. Now it is forgiven. Great news. COLA. Your benefits are going to go up next year. The check you're receiving right now for benefits, you're never going to see because you're going to see a big new check next year, 5 to 6% more. But guess what? Fifth stimulus is right behind it. And fifth stimulus will have 2 more lifts after that if it becomes law. First, they're going to raise your benefits up one additional time. If you're on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, railroad benefits, veterans benefits, then they're going to apply a new benchmark. The new benchmark is inflation. Janet Yellen, your Treasury Secretary, told press yesterday, we're going to see 1 to 3% inflation next year. I believe so as well. I think it's going to be about 2%, which was pre-pandemic levels. COLA next year, likely 0. So you don't want to have COLA. Inflation will replace it. Let's do the analysis. First, this is going to raise your benefits up starting next year. Then, as soon as fifth stimulus becomes law, they'll raise you up again. And then, as they apply the new benchmark next year, if fifth stimulus becomes law, you'll be raised up 3 times in 1 year. They're going to remove the asset cap. We have prevention from having more than $3,000 on hand. It's going to go away. And they're going to remove the income cap, dating back to a 1960s law that says you can't work and stay on benefits. It's going to go away. Finally, the marriage penalty is going to end. And love is going to win, and you'll be able to marry your longtime love interest and get married. Like Rob and Sandy will be able to get married and no longer fear the loss of the marriage penalty. Finally, if you haven't become a member, please do. The link is under the video. The newsletter was not sent out Monday night because of technical difficulties. It'll be sent out on Tuesday. It's sent out Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, via the YouTube and the LALATE alert system. It features the big money that is available under first, second, and third stimulus. Viewers are still getting that money. Rent, utilities, mortgage assistance, SNAP, also help from the nonprofits, furnaces, electric appliances, broken windows. clothing, homeless people in the shelters. Consider becoming a member to learn about all that big money, and I'll be featuring more about third stimulus later in this week. Finally, as we go into a big morning, here is my insight as the situation of what's unfolding right now. As we look at the situation across the board, the situation is getting very clear of what needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done. Here's my opinion of the situation and my insight, new on Mornings LALATE, starting right now. My insight is the following, that as you look at this entire recon, there is one battleground, and that big battleground is the following. It is the core of the progressives: dental, vision, hearing, Medicare expansion. It was 2 weeks ago where the president looked at the recon. It was not moving, and he said, you know why it's not moving? Because the clean energy provision, Joe Manchin one's out, needs to be out. You haven't taken it out, take it out. Suddenly we got moving. Now, at the 11th hour, with 98% of the recon done, guess which provision is in jeopardy? The number one most important provision to the progressives: dental, vision, hearing, Medicare, money for seniors. They now see their number one provision in jeopardy of being removed. So my perspective of the situation is that is the provision or provisions that need to be negotiated first today. They need to get this to language. They need to get this written up. They need to figure out how to pay for it if Republican states don't want to pay for it. They need to figure out where the Medicare eligibility age is dropped from. They need to figure out if dental is not rolled out for 4 to 5 years, what money you're going to get for your teeth this year, next year. They need to figure that out now because these are big issues. They don't need to be figuring out easier provisions like community college is just easy. That's just an easy provision. You don't need to do that now. You need to do the core of the provisions. Moreover, you know what I'm going to be looking for. You know exactly what I'm going to be looking for. Over the last few weeks, we've had certain quotes from Jean Paul and Bernie when we talk about the dental, vision, and hearing. And you know what the quotes said? The quotes said the following. First, when Jean Paul was asked, is little bit better than nothing? She said, no. People that existed their entire life on little. We're not going to do little anymore. So little, it represents removing dental and leaving vision and hearing out. Bernie Sanders said, this is a non-starter, removing any of these provisions. So is Bernie going to hold his position or fold like a lawn chair? And then, you know what print media and myself are all both talking about right now? Jean Paul was asked by broadcast media about a month ago, would she ever do 1.5 trillion? She said that's not going to happen ever. So is she going to fold and do 1.5 trillion? It's that type of refocusing that absolutely has to happen right now to get the recon moving. They got to focus on the price tag, and they got to focus on the dental, vision, and hearing to figure out if they can get that solved. If they can't get the number one progressive priority solved, then the negotiations will not improve from yesterday till today. Once they get that solved, then we can get the ball rolling and get this recon out the door and do those add-ons. Remember, negotiations are involving 4 people. Negotiations not involving all the people. As Liz Warren says, I hope they get this good because she's not part of the recon negotiations and she certainly has a say about what she wants to add in there. Coming up next is Mornings Crypto at 10 a.m. and then 11 a.m. I'm back with you at noontime live on air. So subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record. I want you part of this family. Hit that subscribe button right now. Like the video, 2,000-3,000 likes, and consider becoming a member. Purple Hawk, Purple Power Casino VIP. Stay informed, stay focused, have a beautiful morning, and stay with me because the news cycle is changing by the hour on the hour. Expect a lot of breaking details by noontime. And this is LALATE.